everyone else who is watching. So the topic of today is distractions. It's one of my favorite topics, and it's why that word made it to the subtitle of the book, Living with Purpose and Achieving Your Goals in a World of Distractions. It's one of the main obstacles to focus, to purpose, to self-discipline. And it's all around us, and it's only going to get worse. Achala, I'm definitely live there. You might need to reload the page. If you go to my channel, there's a live tab and you should see me there. It seems to be okay from my end. Now, before I go into the content, I would love to hear from you. How would you rate yourself in distractions? How a high rating is good. So how would you rate yourself in managing distractions? When 1 is, I am very poor at managing distractions, I'm constantly distracted. And 10 is, I am very good at managing distractions. I'm great at managing distractions. It's under my control and I don't get distracted unless I want to. 100% distracted, okay. So lots of 4s, 3, 9, 3. Okay, 0. ADHD makes this difficult. I've worked with more than one ADHD client on self-discipline and I understand the problem very well. So I know what you're going through, and a lot of the tips and techniques that we're going to share today are also applicable for ADHD. Okay. And so that is why this is one of my favorite classes of the series. I have maybe 5 or 7, and how many classes we have? 26, I believe. And 5 or 7 are my favorites, and this is one of them because it's a very big challenge. And it's a challenge that even fairly disciplined people struggle with. And there are many layers of this challenge. One layer is, yes, I'm supposed to be doing work and I'm getting distracted with notifications from my phone or with a new email, etc. And I don't get any continuous, unbroken attention. That's one layer of this problem, and it's definitely real. Another layer of this problem is I keep shifting goals. I keep shifting paths. I don't pursue one thing. I don't focus on one thing for long enough. I get distracted with something else that seems more interesting, more promising, or another path that seems quicker. In entrepreneurship, we call this the shiny object syndrome. There's an object that comes to us that is more shiny than what we're working on right now. And more shiny means it arouses more dopamine in us. It promises a bigger reward, or it promises a reward quicker. So we go there and we abandon or pause or delay our current progress. So that is another way of thinking about distractions. And then the deepest way is, or the hardest way is, you know what? I can't focus during my meditation. I'm supposed to be paying attention to my breath, but 3 breaths in, I'm gone. Or even before the first breath has finished, I'm already gone. I forgot what I'm supposed to be doing. So the opposite of distractions is focus. Focus. And in some degrees, focus is a synonym to self-discipline. Self-discipline itself is a form of focus, and it takes discipline to focus. So one leads to the other. Okay, so today the whole class will be on slides. So you will be seeing me on the corner. Now, before we go into that mode, self-discipline is about living life aligned with your values. When you're living a disciplined life from other people who don't understand self-discipline, who don't understand living a life of purpose, who don't understand having an important goal. They may feel like you are being harsh on yourself, that you're limiting yourself, that you're not enjoying life. But inside yourself, you know what you're doing. You know what is most valuable for you. Distractions may have their place, but they are not the most valuable thing. So they should come after what is the most valuable thing. And when you're living the life of self-discipline, you are living the life of purpose. Self-discipline is purpose's best friend. Because if you have a sense of purpose, clarity about your goals and aspirations, and you don't have self-discipline, then it can even be painful because you're not making progress. And if you want to have self-discipline without a sense of purpose, it doesn't make any sense. Then it's just a limitation, right? So purpose and self-discipline, they come together. And purpose could be a grandiose purpose. This is the meaning of my life. Or it could be something as simple as a little goal that you want to achieve, something that you want to change. Clean your house, declutter your computer, prepare for that interview so you're more likely to get a job. Start that 20-minute meditation, daily meditation habit. This is also purpose. It's to have a goal. So self-discipline is not self-punishment, it is self-respect. It is you respecting your commitments to yourself. And when you do that, to the extent that you do that, you like yourself more. You have more self-esteem and more self-confidence. My approach to self-discipline, I call mindful self-discipline because it's all based on awareness. Both awareness and willpower are important, are essential for self-discipline. But most approaches out there, it's only about willpower and in the mode of mental toughness, of forcing yourself. I call that the military approach. My approach is awareness first, then willpower. That the more you are aware of your goals, of your values, of why this habit matters, the easier it is for you to stay on track. And awareness skills also means developing some space between you and your thoughts, your emotions, your impulses, your triggers. And this space is the space of your freedom. The wider is the space, the more freedom you have. If there's no space, there's no freedom because something happens that triggers a response and there's no space to choose something else. And that means that the environment is controlling your life. That's what I call the conditioned life. You're living outside in. And our opportunity as a human being in the path of growth is that we live inside out. From the inside of us, we have our values, our aspirations, and we use that to change our behavior, our decisions, our actions, our emotions, and we show up like that onto the world, changing reality around us according to our aspirations. I say this, that if your aspirations are not bending your reality is bending your aspirations. If you're not living inside out, you're living outside in. The topic today is big. I don't think I have the time to do a summary of the 3 pillars, which I usually do. But for those of you who are new, just 3 pillars: aspiration, awareness, and action. We have fully covered the aspiration pillar. Today is the last class on the awareness pillar. Let me just double check that. And then next week, we will begin the action pillar. Yes, that is correct. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we will begin. Okay, all right, you're seeing this. Mastering distractions. You know, the easiest way to master distractions is to not have them, to get them out of your life as much as possible. To some degree, we all have the ability to do that. We all have that possibility. And that's the easiest path. It's easier to not use social media than to manage your time and your attention when you're using social media. We'll get there. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. That's what Viktor Frankl has to say. A very influential psychologist of last century, author of Man's Search for Meaning. When you can't find meaning, you distract yourself with pleasure. And nowadays, there's an infinite amount of pleasure available to us in the sense of entertainment, information. Information itself is pleasure. If that's why some people they're Googling one random thing after another, watching one YouTube after another, because there's that spike of dopamine, of something new. We feel that we are growing, that we are getting better, or at least we are enjoying our time when we are constantly exposed to something new. So we have an unlimited opportunity for pleasure to a certain extent in our lives today. And that's a big problem, because it becomes very easy for us to run away from boredom, for us to run away from our deepest truth. When you're distracted, you're not thinking about your life. You're not thinking about your goals. You're not having empty space in your mind, in your awareness, that can be occupied by an insight. You're not giving yourself the chance to connect some dots at a deeper level. Instead, you're engaging with processing information, living outside in. Let's make sure that this is working fine. Yes. So the nature of distractions. Distractions are a problem not only because of the time that they objectively take. If you would be using a time tracking app, you might see that perhaps 15 hours of your week is gone into distractions. In some cases, it's more. And that's not the only problem. The problem is that distractions is bringing indifference. The problem is this culture of distraction, this habit of distraction, is training your brain to be less motivated to pursue long-term goals in search for a reward, when another reward, yes, much smaller, but it's available here and now, in front of your nose, under your nose, however you say that in English. I think in Portuguese you say in front of your nose. With zero effort, with zero time, basically. Just, this is interesting. So that is the biggest problem with distraction, not only the time it takes, but what it does to us. We are satisfying the human need for fulfillment through small pleasures that keep you addicted for more. They keep you addicted for more because they don't really deliver. They're not really satisfying. When you eat a meal that is fully satisfying, you're good. If you eat one thing and immediately you need to eat another one of that nonstop, then that's just addictive. It's not bringing you to a state of contentment. Now, our brain is wired to feel good. Everything that we do in our life, if we dig deep enough, we will see behind that action there is a motivation to want to feel good. You may say, Giovanni, sometimes I do things that are actually not good for me. But the reason why you do them, it's connected to the sense of good. People also sacrifice their own interests for something higher or for another person. But even when you do that, there's a sense that that is the right thing to do. And you feel good when you do the right thing. You feel good when you are that type of person. And you would feel bad if you had the opportunity to help and you didn't. People who do atrocious acts of violence They're also doing what they are doing because they believe it will be good for them. They believe that pulling that trigger is going to be something that will enhance their life, that will make them feel better. So that universal pursuit of what is good for us is behind everything. Everyone has it. The only difference is the amount of wisdom and awareness that is about how you're pursuing your good. And what type of good is that? Is that a very kind of low level, or is it a more enlightened form of good? And when you're feeling good, that motivation vanishes. We are motivated to do something when we want to feel good and we believe that doing that thing will make us feel good. If we already feel good, then we don't need to do it again. The brain is like, okay, we can go into energy saving mode now. And the brain loves to save energy because the brain's primary project is survival. That is its main job. And to survive, you need to save energy, especially in the past, where the next meal is uncertain. So far your brain is like, hey, I can get this feeling of feeling good. I can feel good with very little effort and immediately. And I'm doing this all day long. Why should I put a lot of effort to pursue a higher good, but that's something so far away and uncertain that I may get or may not get? And this doesn't happen as words in your mind. It happens at a subconscious level. There's no point in making any further effort. You already feel good. So I like to call this the seeking energy. Motivation is the seeking energy. Is that energy in us that seeks something to improve our state, to experience that promise, that promised reward. And that energy is our fuel. It's our drive. We need to spend it wisely. And you may not even be aware that when you're scrolling through social media or finding the latest news or whatever, that you are spending part of that energy because you are taking an easy action to get an easy win. Pleasures are the fast food of happiness. When you're hungry, you can go and have fast food. And it looks like food, it tastes like food, it feels good, but it doesn't really have the nutrients you need to live a long, healthy, happy life. Same thing with pleasures. They feel good, they are instant, there's less effort involved, but they don't have the nutrients, the elements we need for real happiness. Pleasures are a depreciating asset. You may love vanilla ice cream. I like pistachio ice cream. But if you go and get that first scoop of vanilla ice cream, it gives you this amount of pleasure. And you want it again, so you have a second scoop. You're going to get this amount of pleasure. And then if you have the third spoon, you're going to get less and less and less and less. And after a certain point, you're just continuing out of addiction. We know this from studies and addiction of alcohol and cigarettes, and that the amount of actual pleasure you're getting from that activity or substance, it's increasingly small or even zero. It's just like getting a little bit back to the baseline. Because your brain gets tired of processing that stimuli. And overstimulation is dangerous for the nervous system. So your brain needs to protect itself against that. And it does that by turning off the sensitivity. There is an emptiness in our soul that not everyone is aware of, that not everyone is connected to, but it is there. If you're connected with yourself, you will know what that is. And that is never filled by pleasures. that is never filled by living a pleasant life. That is filled by purpose, by living our values. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should become monks and abandon all forms of comfort and pleasure in our life. There is a balanced way, and we're going to see how to go about that very soon in this class. Now, let me see what is going on here. Okay, I'm just going to finish this one, and then I will cover the questions. So distractions and temptations, they are taking away your power. They're not only stealing your time, they're stealing your energy, your focus, your motivation. Because they're making you forget your goal. They're making you think about something else. And thoughts are energy. If you're thinking about something else, that is energy that you're putting into something else rather than your goals. So the solution is that we need to learn how to manage distractions by using awareness and willpower, the two elements of self-discipline. And this problem is only getting worse. That's why some people call focus the skill of the century. It's getting each time harder, and therefore it's getting each time more valuable. If you have a little bit more focus and self-discipline than other people, you will be ahead of the pack. And it doesn't take that much anymore. A little parenthesis for a story. I have a law background. I graduated a bachelor's degree in law, and I worked with law in the Brazilian government for 5 years before I moved to Australia. And when I was moving to Australia, Brazilian law was useless, so I decided to change my career. I was getting passionate about technology, so I bought some books to teach myself programming. And I felt, self-doubt can arise, right? How can I, that don't have any background in IT or math, that I am a foreigner, compete with the Australians who have a bachelor or master's degree in IT, who belong to that country, who have don't need a visa, they can work, and I had a limitation even to how many hours I could work. But a year in, I was a team lead, and there were people who were far more qualified than me, at least on paper, that were reporting to me. Why? Because of some other skills that I had, of focus and discipline and organization. If you're able to develop these skills, everything else will be easier in your life. Okay, let me have a look at the questions before we continue. Self-discipline is not self-punishment, it is self-respect, yes. Holocaust survivor, yes. His book is amazing. I listened to his audiobook. The first 2/3 are his life story, and the last third is the lessons for us and his new form of psychology or therapy. But if you don't read the first two parts, the last part will be less impactful. Can I talk more about what is the seeking energy? The seeking energy is dopamine. It's what moves us to take action. And we are moved to taking action when something is missing, when something is wrong, when there's a sense that something needs to be done to improve our state. That is our seeking energy. Men search for meaning, yes. I listened to it as an audiobook. Now, dopamine, the key to heaven and hell. It's not the pleasure chemical, as many believe. It's the arousal chemical. It's connected to desire, motivation, focus, but also restlessness. That when you see an object of desire, you're restless until you achieve it. That restlessness can lead to focus because you're not happy doing anything else at that point. When you use dopamine well, you will have the energy to achieve your goals. That is healthy dopamine. But if you use it poorly, you can end up in addiction, boredom, apathy, or meaninglessness. This is the cycle of dopamine. You perceive the opportunity to experience a reward. Then there's a sense of uneasiness or even anxiousness of, I need to do this to get this reward. And at this stage, there is high motivation. It's like fire. Then when you actually get the reward, you no longer feel the need to pursue it further. That is a state of low motivation. Now what's happening is if we keep spending that seeking energy in a way that we get quick rewards, easy rewards, then we are training ourselves to expect only quick and easy rewards. And our resilience, our interest for pursuing rewards that take time, that demand effort, self-discipline, sacrifice, will be very small because we have trained ourselves to experience rewards immediately. So dopamine is healthy. It's not a bad thing. You need dopamine to function well as a human being. If you have low dopamine, you'll experience fatigue, poor concentration, low sex drive, apathy, difficulty sleeping, depression, ADHD, and addiction. All of these things are connected to low dopamine. Oh, this already went. So the challenge is not dopamine per se, but how we use it. How do we seek to experience dopamine? What do we do with our seeking energy? If you are able to delay the reward, you will have more motivation, energy, creativity. Delayed passion is sustained passion, some say. Now, if you are after instant rewards, that leads to addiction and meaninglessness. Why meaninglessness? Because you don't have any energy to pursue bigger things that would actually fulfill you. And you're in that rat wheel of experiencing immediate dopamine of smaller rewards effortlessly. It doesn't seem like there's anything bigger in life. So this is the downregulation of pleasure that we talked about with the example of the ice cream. The more you have that pleasure, the less valuable it becomes. The Epicureans, which were Greek philosophers, different from the Stoics, they were seeking to maximize pleasure, to maximize how much happiness they can get in life in this sense. And they understood how this worked. They had wisdom about how this worked. One of them, I think it was Epicurean himself, he used to love a particular cheese, and he would only allow himself to have it once a week, because he knew that if he had it more often, he would enjoy it less. Now see, there's a way to pursue pleasure that is also more meaningful, that is wiser. And even that requires self-control. They understood this phenomenon of the downregulation of pleasure. But what's happening these days is the moment you start getting bored with a particular stimulation, there is another one coming and another one coming. And they're coming each time quicker and quicker and quicker, and our attention spans get smaller. Shorter and shorter. Right after the reward, your dopamine levels drop considerably. And with it, your capacity to focus and feel motivated. There's a TEDx talk called The Pleasure Trap by Douglas Lyle. And he tells about the experiment with a bird in a cage that had easy access to unlimited dopamine. There was a button that whenever the bird pressed, there would be dopamine released in his brain. Now, what happened? He used it all the time because there was nothing in his life that could compare with that. As a result, he even stopped eating and mating, and he kept pushing that button continuously until he died 14 days later. Now, we're not like a bird in a cage, or are we? Our modern life is full of these big, shiny dopamine buttons that you can keep on pressing, and they're going to keep on releasing, and you keep getting less and less pleasure, and you still keep on pressing while you're making other people rich, people who don't need to be richer than they are, people who have no other goal except to become richer, and you're hurting in the process. Junk dopamine is associated with all forms of addiction. Yes, we look at these things and we say like, no, that's not me, or that's not me anymore, if that was your life journey. But we don't realize that there are also other forms of junk dopamine. TV, games, phone, entertainment, shopping. Looks delicious, doesn't it? Stock market, money, social media. And then we end up in a state of addiction, in a state of powerlessness. So this is the big problem that we're talking about when we're talking about distractions. That repeated short bursts of dopamine lowers our dopamine baseline. And when our dopamine baseline lowers, we experience those problems that I talked about a few slides ago. Apathy, meaninglessness, boredom. Life becomes less lively. It's what we see happening with many people these days. There's that sense of like, whatever, that internet-like cynicism often, and nihilism often. It's a product of the means of communication, of spending time. It's reducing motivation, willpower, energy, and focus. The more instant gratification we have on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, the lower will be our dopamine baseline, which means the lower will be our motivation, willpower, energy, and focus. There's a direct correlation between these two. And when you really understand this, then you're ready to make a shift. And that's why I'm spending half of this class on understanding the problem. Once you fully understand the problem, the solution is not very difficult. The solution makes sense. It's something that you actually want to do. The more you understand the problem, the more motivated you will be to apply the solution. And in this case, it's very important because the problem is all pervasive. Junk dopamine also hurts you and your motivations by occupying your working memory. You see that we're still okay here? You guys can still see me? Yes. So why do I mean by that, and why is that important? Our working memory is how many things we can keep in mind. And it's like the RAM of your computer, but much more limited. Versus the long-term memory that we can retrieve, but we don't need to keep in mind. So if we are constantly engaging with sources of distraction and instant gratification, we are occupying part of our working memory with those things, which means that our working memory is even smaller. That affects our capacity to stay present, to stay focused. It makes us forget our aspirations, which is why in the beginning of this class I said the main problem with distractions is that it leads to indifference towards long-term goals. Not only the time that is wasted, although that's also important. If we can keep 10 things in our working memory, and one of them is my aspiration that I'm thinking about, that I'm contemplating on, that I'm remembering to act in a certain way or to take certain steps, and now I've put in a new item, which is this notification and this funny video that came. Now, the oldest of the other items has to leave for me to have space for this. And so there's less space in our working memory. There's less space in our life for our aspirations when we're constantly engaged with distractions. It weakens the prefrontal cortex, which is the evolved brain, connected with self-awareness, willpower, long-term goals. You are training to prioritize short-term satisfaction and comfort over long-term fulfillment. Now, in the worksheet, actually in the workbook, there is a dopamine audit exercise that will allow you to take this further by developing awareness of the sources of dopamine in your life and what they are doing to you. And you may feel uncomfortable going through that exercise, but that's part of the purpose. It will give you the clarity you need to take action and start making a shift with how you deal with distractions. Now, before we talk about what is that shift, let me see if you guys have any questions. Is this resonating? Give me some feedback. How are these ideas landing for you? Okay. Also having a look at the comments on YouTube. Scary and true. That's about right. Helpful. Difficult, but difficult to accept, to take it in, but accurate. Exciting to know and hard to face. Okay, it's the same pattern, I know. So let's talk about the shift. What it would mean. What does it mean to embrace these truths in a positive way? Until when is the session going to be? More 45 minutes or less if we finish sooner. This clarify why one's having trouble getting proper accomplishment. I became a hedonist Epicurean several decades ago, and I'm trying to put it behind. This is mind-blowingly opening. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Now the shift is to go from junk dopamine to healthy dopamine. To refrain from the junk dopamine of instant gratification and instead prioritize activities that increase our dopamine baseline, our healthy dopamine, such as pursuing long-term goals, delaying gratification and pursuing long-term goals, meditation, physical exercise, learning, and then dopamine makes you focused, resourceful, and motivated. So a quick rule of thumb is that if the reward is quick and easy, it's not good for you. If the reward takes time, energy, dedication, then that is healthy and will lead to a happier life. It's the same thing with food. Fast food versus slow food. There's the slow food movement. There's the slow movement about everything nowadays. Some people are waking up to the fact that it's not about fast. That fast is not better. That quick and immediate is not better. Sometimes it's worse by definition. It seems that since the Industrial Revolution, this has slowly been happening, where we're becoming like a machine. Because a machine can do things faster, immediate. There's much more to human life. If we don't realize that, then there's a sense of emptiness and nihilism. And you cannot argue that away by thoughts and logic. So healthy versus junk dopamine. Oh, sorry, someone asked me to show the dopamine slide again. I believe that you're mentioning a slide that has these charts. So all of these charts, all of these images, they are also in the book and they are in the resources page. In the resources page, you will find a summary of everything that I'm talking about today, and also a link for you to download the workbook where there are several exercises around distraction. We talk about the dopamine audit. There are at least 2 or 3 other sections of the workbook that are focused on distractions. Now, the quick versus the healthy dopamine. One option is that you seek dopamine shots repeatedly, instant gratification. That will lower your dopamine baseline, which leads to less energy, less motivation, less focus, apathy, addiction, and meaninglessness. And it also leads to the downregulation of pleasure, meaning that pleasure will become less pleasant. You seek pleasure, pleasure will become less pleasant, and there's a lot of negative things that comes with it. Now, your other option is to engage in dopamine increasing activities and diminish instant gratification. That will lead you to a higher dopamine baseline. With that comes more energy, motivation, and focus, creativity, productivity, and a sense of alignment with the things that matter for you. And there's no downregulation of pleasure. Pleasure is actually more pleasant when you delay the gratification. So these are 2 different ways to live, and they're 2 very different lives. And some of us here might be more in one or more in the other, or a bit of a mix. So here's a moment of self-reflection for you. So the challenge is our brain is hardwired for survival. And for that, saving energy is important, which means that the brain has a natural bias towards instant gratification. Now, this was useful and perhaps even good hundreds of thousands of years ago, when the opportunities for distraction, pleasures, and sweet food or salty food were scarce. You find it, get it immediately. You don't know when you're going to have that luck again. But now it's time for us to evolve. The times have changed. We have changed. Society has changed. What was an asset then is a liability now. And biologically, your brain hasn't evolved that much. We need to be aware of it and to do this work. At that time, we were focused on survival. Now it's about purpose. It's about thriving, not only surviving. One way for you to make this shift from the junk dopamine to the healthier dopamine is to increase the perceived reward of your long-term goals. Because as I said, for the brain, there is the perception of the reward of the short-term goals, or short-term, the instant gratification, that is sharper, that is louder, because there is this bias of the brain towards immediate gratification. For you to balance that, you need to increase the reward of the long-term goals. The long-term goals are more rewarding than these instant gratifications. But in the moment, we don't know it. In the moment, we don't live with that awareness. That's why I said awareness and willpower. Awareness is an important element in mindful self-discipline. If you live day by day with the awareness of your goals and values, then you have a natural buffer against this and other challenges. This is why in mindful self-discipline, I talk about the day plan. You start your day by reviewing your aspirations, making an intention, planning your day so that your aspirations are in there somewhere. You end your day thinking about your aspirations through the 3-question journal. Throughout the day, you use the PAW method at least once, ideally 3 times or more, to constantly reconnect to your values and aspirations. All of this helps you keep them constantly in mind. It enhances your awareness of the long-term goals and why they matter. So this one is the aspiration pillar, and keeping them constantly in mind is the awareness pillar. Let me see if there are any questions. Can the prefrontal part of our cortex literally shrink? You know, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm probably getting these terms wrong, but I have come across research showing that it shrinks or it becomes less active. Not sure what is the term, but yes, it definitely impacts. I prefer slow yoga, yes. At first I thought distractions meant distractions during the task itself, but this is explaining my procrastination. Yes, it's a much wider problem. How long does the shift take to get back from a normal baseline after the junk dopamine is reduced? Well, that depends on how bad it was your case. Some people that I have guided through the dopamine detox, which in the book I call the monk week, even after 3 days they already feel a difference. It depends. I'm glad I have your paw wristband. Yes, that's a reminder. I'm wearing it right now. Pause, awareness, willpower. Thank you, Liz, for the donation. These classes are made possible by donations of appreciative listeners. So if you appreciate my work, if you appreciate these classes, then consider leaving a donation. And that is how I'm able to continue coming here and sharing everything that I know on this topic. I always make errors while rushing to leave, so I go slow. Yes. Being in a state of rush is one of the biggest enemies of awareness. Because in that state, when you're in a state of rush, you're not paying attention. You're not centered. Hope you enjoyed the book, Trish. Please give some examples of positive rewards, or short-term or long-term. So short-term rewards are instant gratification. You see the donuts, you want to eat it, you experience pleasure for 10 seconds, and it's finished. Or there's a ding, someone liked your photo on Instagram, you want to go and see who was it, there's a little satisfaction, and then it's finished. All of that is instant gratification. Long-term is the achievement of your goals. If you want to transform yourself, transform your body, learn a skill, grow in your career, improve your relationship, start a business, write a book, all of these things that are long-term goals, there is a delayed gratification. The gratification comes little by little and more towards the end. So we need to learn how to love the process itself, how to find the gratification in the process itself. And then it is rewarding, and we can continue, and we can get that bigger reward at the end. But if we get that reward immediately, then that fire is finished. A PAW method key, P-A-W, PAW. I'm grateful for these weekly classes. Okay. Thank you, Shanti, for the donation. Would be good to have this in junior high school classes. I agree. They are probably the most at-risk population born in the age of technology, without the understanding and the skills to use technology and not be used by technology. Now, many of you said, you know what, this is scary, this is difficult, but it's true. So you might be experiencing some resistance right now. Will it mean that I have to let go of all distractions and all pleasures and entertainment? Will my life become dull, boring, and dry and all about productivity? No. There are studies showing that people with greater self-control, with greater self-discipline, they live a life of greater fulfillment, of more happiness and well-being, not less. So it's not self-denial for some other purpose. It's about living a better life. So research shows that people with more self-control experience greater self-esteem, stronger willpower, more life satisfaction, and better health. So adopting this will not make your life boring or saltless, as if that's an expression. It will help you live better across the different areas of your life. It's understanding that pleasures don't deliver happiness, but living with purpose and self-discipline does. And I'm not making any of this up. I'm collecting the pearls of wisdom that I have found from the ancient wisdom traditions, especially yoga, Buddhism, the Hindu tradition, and what we know now from psychology and neuroscience. And they're all talking about the same thing. And I'm stringing them together. Pleasure does not bring happiness. Living aligned with your sense of purpose, with your goal, seeking important, meaningful things for you, things that give you, that are bigger than yourself, being aligned with that, that gives you a sense of fulfillment and happiness in life. So why pleasures don't deliver happiness? Many reasons. First is that pleasures don't change your happiness baseline. What is your happiness baseline? It's how you feel about yourself. It's how you feel on a day-to-day basis about yourself and about your life. If you think about what is your emotional background like, that's your happiness baseline. What do I mean? You may experience a moment of anger and then come back to your baseline. Or you may experience a moment of excitement and come back to your baseline. Or you may experience a moment of sadness and then you come back to your baseline. What is that baseline like? For some people, it will be a sense of anxiety, a sense of emptiness, a sense of frustration, a sense of I'm not good enough. For other people who have done a lot of personal work or spiritual work, it may be a sense of peace, of bliss, or empowerment, fire. And pleasures, the amount of pleasure we experience does not change our happiness baseline. There's research on people who have won a lot of money on the lottery, and after a year and a half, they are back to the same state. Or people who have gone through an accident and now they can't walk. That hasn't changed their happiness baseline that much. It's internal. And pleasures don't do much for changing that. If starting from tomorrow, I have meals that are 10 times more pleasant than the meals I have now, and probably 10 times more expensive, I will not really become happier. I will enjoy that novelty while it's still a novelty, and then it just becomes the new normal. But the way I feel about myself hasn't changed. The way I feel about my life hasn't changed. That is our happiness baseline. And at the same time, if I have to eat hot dog every day because I can't afford anything else, a vegetarian hot dog in my case, my body's not going to be very happy, but my emotional state, how I feel about myself, how I feel about my life, the fact that I'm focused on purpose, that doesn't change. Pursuing long-term goals brings satisfaction. We know that. Pursuing pleasure doesn't. Pursuing pleasure brings moments of pleasure. Pursuing long-term goals brings a life of meaning, of engagement, of contentment. Also, many pleasures have negative side effects. I read somewhere, I forgot where this comes from, the person saying that everything that I like is immoral, illegal, or it makes me fat. So, talking about that level of pleasure, they often have negative side effects. Not all of them, but many. And pleasures get less pleasant with repetition. It's that phenomenon of the downregulation of pleasure that we talked about. So wrapping up all of this theory part of the class today, do you want to live a life that is at the same time more meaningful, more fulfilling, more abundant, and also more pleasant? Then be willing to sacrifice pleasures at the altar of thy aspiration. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have pleasures, but they should be secondary. The purpose should come first. The order matters. That you start your day with purpose. You end your day with purpose. You plan purpose into your day. And in between, you can have moments of pleasure if they don't hurt you. More on that in a moment. Actually, the moment has come. It's obviously I haven't rehearsed this before presenting. It's the idea of first purpose, then pleasure. First purpose, then pleasure. If you remember just one thing from today, first purpose, then pleasure. This contains the essence of today's class. Everything else is either building up to this point so you can appreciate why this is so, or it's different techniques to implement the same thing. It doesn't mean that you need to become a monk, be celibate and live on peanuts in a hut in the Himalayas. Mindful self-discipline is about balance. A good life has space for both purpose and pleasure, if you can go through it with awareness, if you know how to balance it. And the key to balance is first purpose, then pleasure. We want islands of pleasure in a sea of meaning, not the other way around. Because the other way around is not really pleasant and it's not meaningful. So we can say that there are 3 levels of priority in our life. And this is the story that was made popular by Stephen Covey, and I think it was in his main book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The rocks, the pebbles, and the sand. And in some version of the story, there's also the water. But let's keep it simple. The rocks are our most meaningful goals, our values, and all the steps we need to take to achieve them, all the milestones, all the activities that we need to take to achieve those important goals. Pebbles are the minor goals, the activities that are important, kind of, or urgent, but they're not essential. They're not the type of thing that in our deathbed we're going to look back and say, I'm glad I did that thing. And sand is everything else. Pleasure, comfort, pastime, busyness, all else. If we first, and the jar is a metaphor for our life. If we first put in the sand and then the pebbles, there will not be enough space for the big rocks. That's the first row here. Now look at the second row. We first put in the big rocks. First purpose, then pleasure. When we put the pebbles, they find themselves in between the big rocks. And when we put the sand finds its place in between the pebbles and the rocks. And everything fits. If you follow this principle of first purpose, then pleasure, you can have a life where everything fits. Everything is in place. So it's something worth remembering, thinking about, meditating about regularly. That if at times in your life it feels like some of the big rocks are out, have a look at how is the jar of your life. How did you start today? Did you start with the sand or did you start with the rocks? Did you start by staying 20 minutes in bed scrolling through your favorite app? the sand? Or did you start by waking up and working on your morning routine that has all the big rocks? One way of looking at the jar of life is life in a whole. And the other way of looking is that every day, how are we filling the jar of our lives? All right, let me see what's happening here. Caroline Wagner asks on YouTube, how do I make a donation? YouTube has a donate button somewhere in the interface. If you cannot find it, then you can send me an email and I'll send you a PayPal link. But I believe it is, yes, it is activated for my account because I have received before. Thank you, Norma and Claude, for the donation. Maybe this is why many suggest doing the difficult tasks first. Yes. In the beginning of the day, you have more willpower available. And if you start by dissipating that through activities that bring distraction, then your day doesn't start well. These principles help give structure and happiness. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. I realize I need to get clear on my aspirations. I have too many things that I want to do, and it's causing an overwhelm. Yes. Once you are clear on your aspirations, it will be easier for you to say no to distractions. Because you have a why, a clear, strong why. Living in the Himalayas in a small hut is PBJ. I don't know what is PBJ. Sounds peaceful. What if you start your day with yoga? Yes, that sounds like an activity that is more like a big rock, taking care of your health or perhaps your spirituality, depending on the case. Sounds like a great idea for me. Thank you, Key and Rachel, for the donation. You're calling me out on the morning sand, scrolling first thing in the morning. Yes, this is not only you, Christine. This is very common. Everyone that I work with as a coach, I say one of the main habits to implement in the morning is the offline morning. That you wake up with your phone in offline mode. So there's nothing new. There are no badges, no notifications. Your phone is not waving, saying, hey, look at this is interesting, this is going to be fun, another dopamine button here. No, nothing new. And you do your whole morning routine, work on your aspirations, tick the most important boxes in your life, and then you can go offline after that, as a reward, if anything. First purpose, then pleasure. Or if you are wired a little bit like me, first purpose, then purpose, then purpose, then purpose, and you enjoy the purpose as pleasure. There's also that. PB&J, peanut butter and jelly. It may be hard to find those in the Himalayas. Yoga is pleasurable, but if I put it off until later in the day, I usually won't do it. Yes. Makes sense. That I'm bringing back Stephen Covey and Viktor Frankl, who are influential on you 3 decades ago, the pre-hedonist time. And even the hedonists, they had a wisdom to go about pleasure that most people these days don't. That is not the norm these days. Jocelyn, I've kind of hit a plateau with my career aspirations. Probably why I've turned to distractions I have to find new aspirations. Yes. Either find new aspirations or rekindle your existing ones. It could be that your existing aspirations have begun to feel too difficult or less likely, or it has become clear that you need to make more sacrifices for them that you thought you would. And that's a moment of awareness, a moment to see, like, do I want this enough? Maybe you do, or maybe you need to up your commitment internally, or maybe you need to start exploring something else. Yes, I switch my phone airplane mode when I go to bed, and it's still airplane mode in the morning until I finish my morning routine. Now, some people may need to have the ability to receive an emergency call from a family member. I've had clients who have a second phone only for that purpose. This works wonderfully, but for some of you, it may feel like an extreme solution. If not, if you use an iPhone, you can play with the focus modes. You can go to bed in focus mode and it stays until a certain time of the day. You can schedule that. And you can say that during that time, you want to see no notifications. You hide the distracting apps from your screen, and only these people, you want to hear from them. That's possible. The trouble is that you need a phone for Insight Timer to meditate and then get distracted. You can use the focus mode. You can use the focus mode so that there are fewer apps on your screen. That's what I do. I use my phone, but it's in airplane mode, and it's on a focus mode that hides all of the other apps. I don't know if there's a way for me to show you. So I don't think it's going to appear. Okay, kind of does. So this is the regular home screen of my phone. Now, if I go and turn on the screen is correct. If I go and turn on the sadhana mode, then this is the home screen of my phone. It hides everything up. These are the only apps that I might need to use at that time during my day, of my day. So that's a possibility. Less EMF waves, yeah, that's another reason for me. I know that not everyone is into that, but I think that there's something in it. It's true, to get to the next level of my career is a huge leap as a comedian, and I don't think I want it enough. Yes. Offline morning and big rocks, thank you. And like you, big rocks, then more big rocks. Yes. I'm a filmmaker, I get it. Yes. How did you do that with my... So it's the focus mode. I turn on the focus mode. It hides all the things that I tell it to hide by moving it to other screens and other pages and hiding those pages. And then only the apps that I am okay to see at that time, such as the timer app, Kindle, what else is there? The alarm app, things like this. Yes, Trish, we can do that. The challenge is for most of those apps, I want to see the notifications, just not at that time in the day. At that time, I don't care about anything else. I don't want to see any other notification. All right, let's go back to the presentation. Oops. No, that's not what I meant. You're seeing an infinite mirroring here. Where is the thing? Just give me a second as I figure this out. Okay. What just happened? I got it. Okay. All right, so first purpose, then pleasure. You start your day with your values and aspirations. And you make sure to schedule enough of that throughout the day, and you let pleasure fills in the gaps. That's the only way that I know where you can have the cake and eat it too. That you can live a life of purpose, but also have space for pleasures. You can have fulfillment, and you can enjoy guilt-free pleasures because they are in the right measure for you. If you want to apply the 80-20 principle for your life, then think about, or even perhaps the 90-10 in this case if you're really ambitious, that 80% of your time, your energy, your focus goes to your purpose, and 20% of the time, energy, and focus goes for the pleasures, distractions, entertainment. If you can apply this, you will be living a much more disciplined and fulfilling life than the majority of people out there. And as I said, the order matters. You want to always start with purpose. But what's happening is that in our society, we are defaulting to pleasure in the sense of a notification, an app, or something new here, something fun here. And pleasure is becoming a way to escape, to postpone difficult work, because there's something easy right now that also feels good. Your pleasure should be a reward for your hard work, not a replacement for it, not something that demotivates you to do it. So my question for you is, how is the jar of your life? And you can write something in the comments if you like, or you can keep it as a reflection internally. And that's not just something that you think about it now for 30 seconds and then you forget about it and you go back to the distractions. It's like a Zen koan. It's a question that you live with. If you want it to really impact you, the way you live, then you live with this question. How is the jar of my life today? You know, the practices of mindful self-discipline, the day planning, the beginning of the day, the journaling at the end of the day, the pause throughout the day, all of this helps. How can I implement first purpose, then pleasure in my life? Ask yourself that question. And I think you know it. There might be 15 different things that you need to take care of for you to fully be aligned with this principle. But there's likely a couple of things that you can do today. That is the low-hanging fruits. You can begin with that. Now we're going to briefly cover some helpful techniques. And these techniques are in support of this principle of first purpose, then pleasure. The monk week. Oh, we don't have enough time to cover all of this. I don't think I've ever covered this whole class in 90 minutes. We'll go as far as we can, and the rest is in the book, chapter 22. Again, there is in paper version, Kindle, ebook version, and audiobook version. And it's also, the summary of it is also there in the resources page. How do you access the resources page? If you are watching me on YouTube, I will put the link to the resources page here. If you're watching me on Insight Timer, you can search for my name, Giovanni, on the Insight Timer app, and that will take you to my teacher's profile page. The link is in the bio. Now, the monk week is a dopamine detox for 1 week. It's your opportunity to reset your dopamine baseline. And then when you come out of it, you come out with a different relationship to pleasure, distractions, entertainment in your life. Now, what do we do during the monk week? We avoid all junk dopamine. Remember the metaphor of the dam that I shared last week. If there's even a little hole in the dam, all of the pressure of the water will go through that hole, and little by little, it will become bigger until eventually the dam is destroyed. And then you cannot use that water to generate power anymore. And that water is our awareness and willpower. If we don't contain it, if we don't focus it, it's going to go everywhere, and then we cannot use it anymore. Not for that purpose. So you avoid all sources of junk dopamine, and you cultivate presence and contentment. You do focused work on your most important goals. So take a few moments to digest this image of what a regular week might look like for you, all the different things that are going on, versus a monk week. It's often easier to abstain completely than to gradually taper down and diminish. It takes less self-discipline, in a way, less willpower to completely say no, because then the rules are clear, than to be playing with fire and constantly needing to manage so that you are on track. I find it much easier to eat 1 meal a day than to eat 3 meals a day and do portion control. From the point of view of the cognitive effort, it's less, but there are also other reasons why I eat 1 to 1.5 meals a day. During the monk week, you are cultivating your hunger, not the food hunger, confusing because I just used that metaphor, that analogy, but the hunger for feeling good, for doing things that give you a sense of reward. You're cultivating that hunger. You're not allowing that hunger to be satisfied quickly with no effort. No, you are letting it grow. And in the beginning, it may feel uncomfortable, you may feel bored, but then soon you understand that there's a change, there's a shift happening, and you see the value of that, and then you want more of it. Your brain will demand some form of dopamine. It needs it. It wants to experience it. But junk dopamine is not available because you've closed all the holes in the dam. You have removed all of that from your life for this week. And so all of that energy can only flow towards your long-term goals. And then you will experience the power that you have inside of you, waiting to be tapped into. You can only get the dopamine through healthier sources at that point, such as working on your long-term goals. And the purpose of this week is not only to change the baseline, to help you experience what it is again, to be again in that state where you feel excited about life, where you feel like you're not being pulled in 1,000 directions, where you have energy and focus available for you. All of that will happen. But what we want is to change your relationship with distractions and instant gratification for good. A couple of years ago, after having finished writing this book, which is a really busy period in my life, writing the book, creating the app and the new website, was really busy. So after that, we went on a 1-week vacation to a wonderful place in Queensland called Airlie Beach. And as we were leaving home, 1 minute after leaving home, I told my wife I left my phone at home. And she said to the driver, "No, let's go back and get it. There's still time." I said, "No, I left my phone at home on purpose. This is real vacation." And she couldn't believe it. And you know what? That was a dopamine detox only in relation to my phone. And I already had a pretty good relationship with my phone. But it made a big difference. In the first day, whenever there was a minute of downtime, like waiting for a meal to be served in a restaurant, I would find myself reaching for the pocket and there's nothing there. And I was like, so I guess I just stay here. And I noticed that having that empty space not only brought more calmness and being here, but also more empty space that then can be, the mind can use that to process things that have been going on in one's life, to create insights and understanding, to join the links. And at the end, I'm telling this story because of this last line here. At the end of that week, when I came back to using my phone, I had a different relationship with that device. So that's what we want. If every time you do a monk week, you change your relationship with a couple of sources of dopamine, then it's been very fruitful. Not to mention that monk week will probably be one of the most productive of the year for you. So you can see the guidelines in the workbook. You can download it for free. There is a monk week summary there. Everything that you need to follow that week, that protocol is there. It will teach you the where and when, what to let go of, what to focus on, and how do you transition back into your daily life so that you bring some of that into it. Now, the second technique for dealing with distractions is the idea of procrastinating distractions, also known as the not now technique. We are all good at procrastinating, but we procrastinate on the wrong things. We procrastinate on things that are meaningful but uncomfortable, while we should be procrastinating on things that are comforting, comfortable, but trivial. We procrastinate on the big rocks or the pebbles, while we should procrastinate on the sand. First purpose, then pleasure. So whenever you are focused on doing something and an urge comes to get distracted, to just quickly Google this thing, to check out what's happening to that person on Facebook, whatever is that distraction for you, procrastinate it. Say, not now. I am focused. Protect your focus. If you want your focus to grow, protect your focus. It's very simple, and it works. If you do the work, it works. Until when do you procrastinate it? It depends. If you... I didn't answer that question. Okay, I will answer the question. Until when you procrastinate, it depends on the nature of that distraction. You can procrastinate until you finish that particular task. Then you go and Google that thing, answer that person, etc. Or if that is an unhealthy thing, you can just procrastinate for time indeterminate. Now you're only able to use procrastinate distraction and all of the other willpower techniques in the book because it takes willpower to procrastinate distraction. You can only do that if you have gone through pausing and awareness. PAW method: pause, awareness, and willpower. In this case, willpower is saying no to the distraction, not now. If possible, you remove sources of distraction from your life. That's what I talked about in the beginning of this presentation. If it's not possible and they still show up, you postpone for later. I'm putting a big rock now, or I'm putting a pebble now. Sand is later. First purpose, then pleasure. So this is the answer. You take 3 deep breaths. You procrastinate on the distraction. Not now. Then you refocus on your goal. Now, was that a healthy distraction? If yes, you can enjoy it later as a treat, as a reward, after you have already put it in that big rock or that pebble. And if it's not a healthy distraction, then you just forget about it. So my invitation for you now is to choose how you will practice this technique. Choose one distraction in your life that you will procrastinate this week? Let me know in the comments what that distraction is. And we're going over time here. I just want to make sure I finish everything. So I will read those comments in a moment. So are you going to, is it in relation to a particular distraction? Which distraction? Is it when you are engaged in a particular activity? For example, whenever I am writing, I'm going to procrastinate all distractions. Or I'm going to procrastinate the distraction to check notifications. As soon as they arrive, I will procrastinate that. I will wait a little, and then I will check. I used to do this a long time ago as an exercise in willpower and self-control, that whenever I got a letter, oh my God, letters. At that time it was letters. Whenever I got a letter that I was expecting, or a parcel with something that I had bought and I was expecting, I would put it down and not open it. For some hours, open it tonight, or leave it for the next day. Just to train that control, that detachment. And then I'll open and enjoy it, but not now. Rather than, training myself to be impulsive. For some of you, that might feel a bit extreme, but it depends on one's goals. Consider having a form of an external reminder. It could be a post-it note saying procrastinate distractions. It could be a wristband saying pause, awareness, willpower. It could be whatever works for you, an image of your goal, something that reminds you to procrastinate the distraction and stay focused. And then you can journal your results by using the 3-question journal. For those of you who are members of the Mindful Self-Discipline app, it's there as one of the features. Now, commitment devices, we won't have time to cover. But it's there in the resources page. There's a summary of commitment devices there. So this is a summary of the tools for overcoming distractions. Monk Week is something that you do once or every once in a while for a big reset. Procrastinate distraction. And these 2 other techniques we have already spoken about weeks ago. Shift your focus and shift your perception. You can practice these whenever distractions come up. You don't need to practice all of them. Just one is enough. And commitment devices is an optional extra help that you can have. All right, so we are done with the slides. Now, if you have any questions or thoughts, now is the time, as we are wrapping up in a couple of minutes. Let me have a look at the comments here. And this is the highest number of people we have had in a while. Here on Insight Timer, 244 people. And on YouTube also the highest number we have had in a while. So I'm glad, because this is a really important class. Baby steps is what I do. Best advice my therapist gave me. Are we going to do a Monk Week together? One day I may run a retreat, on a Monk Week retreat. But until then, for the next couple of years, I am focused on writing new books. There are a couple of books in me that need to come out. So that would be the focus first. You are too skinny, Giovanni. Well, what to say? This is partially my nature. If I eat a lot, it doesn't make that much difference. The times in my life that I was not doing exercise, I become even skinnier, especially if I'm in India, that the food is spicy. I cannot eat too much of it. I become really skinny. But the advantage is that I can sit in meditation for longer. So there's both sides. What else? I still don't understand. This keeps scrolling very fast. I still don't understand how we can get all our daily nutrients by eating only once a day. Even with supplements, we are not absorbing all supplements. So think about the 3 meals you're having. Instead of having all that food 3 times a day, all the same amount of food once a day. Same quantity once a day. That's how I started. And then after some time, I realized that, no, I don't actually need all this quantity. I can have a little bit less, and it's okay. And what we know about life extension is that caloric restriction, having fewer calories than you actually need, is better for your body. It will keep you healthier for longer. How long does the effect of the monk week last? I think it's from person to person. It may take you more than one attempt to actually complete the monk week successfully. So you can also consider that, especially if you're doing it on your own. It will need a strong determination. So if that effect has worn off, mostly some of it has been kept. Some of it partially worn off in some phases of my life, but then I reconnect to why I want to make that change, and then it becomes active again. So that something there was a permanent shift, that's for sure. Yes. Interesting. I used to cut my phone off, but I can't now due to having monitor wireless security cameras. There are other solutions to that. You could have an old phone for that. You could have an old tablet for that. You could have a focus mode, especially for that. I will procrastinate texting during meditation. Procrastinate overthinking. Yeah. It's what we do with self-doubt also. We say, not now. All of these doubts, like, is it going to happen? Can I do it? Is this the right way? Is it possible? Not now. I'll think about it later. Now I'll take action. First I'll make it happen, then I'll doubt to see if it's possible. Wonderful. Are you drinking between bullets, and is that because you only eat once a day? Yes, I am drinking water from time to time. That's mostly to keep my throat functional. As I'm typically an introvert, I do not speak for hours. So I need that. I typically don't drink much water during the day. I don't find the need for it. I have a different way of thinking about this than the general assumption that we need 2 liters of water. Next, after confidence, yes. There are a couple of other books coming. I haven't even started writing them, but internally I've started writing them. The 4th book will be about self-discipline again. A simpler approach, a smaller book. And then 1 book about focus. When distraction comes up, how can we work toward our goals at the beginning, especially if we have been in constant distraction? Choose one time of the day. I call it the power hour, where you default to saying no to absolutely all distractions. See if you can do that even for 20 minutes in the beginning. Leave your phone, close your email tab or program, whatever it is, and you are in that mode. If you can do this for 20 minutes, then you can do it for 1 hour. And then you can do it for other areas of your day, other times of your day. I honestly feel we may have finally helped solve my lifelong procrastination and lack of direction. Huge. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Procrastinate on obsessive, negative, and traumatic thoughts. Procrastinate on texting. I've been making progress focusing on setting a timer for 20 minutes and then giving myself 5-10 minutes breaks. Yes. What is my thinking about water? It's very off topic, but our body is very conservative about all signals of what it wants. We can probably, even without training, we can probably retain our breath for 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes before we pass out. And yet after 20 seconds, our body's like, I need air right now, or 30 seconds, depending on the person. The same thing for food. We are capable of spending several days without food. But after 3-4 hours, we may feel hungry and the body's saying, I need it now. Why would it be different with water? If the body needs water, by the same logic, it would ask for water even before it actually needs it. So I drink when I'm thirsty. When the body needs water, I will feel thirsty and I would drink. That happens 2 or 3 times a day, so I drink water 2 or 3 times a day. I trust that my body will ask for what it wants, and I'm connected to feel it. So this idea that we have to push to drink 2 liters of water, I don't know how you say it in the US, is it liters or ounces, every day? That doesn't make sense for me. And also the food that we eat itself contains water. Will another book on self-discipline be different from this one? It's going to be like the concise mindful self-discipline or practicing mindful self-discipline. So it's going to be much thinner. It's not going to contain all the concepts and all the techniques. This is still going to be the main one. That's going to be an entry one. Yes. It's going to be more around certain key disciplines in our life rather than the whole big picture. I'm wondering how I can limit texting with friends. Sometimes I don't even feel like doing it, but they are used to me being available. Well, you can still text your friends, but it doesn't need to be immediate. It doesn't need to be that they send you a message now and within 5 minutes they have a response. Maybe the response comes at a couple different times a day. And if they message in this meantime, they will receive an answer later. So, thank you everyone for being here. I would like to ask of you before we go, what was the biggest takeaway for you today? What is the one concept, insight, technique that you want to make sure you apply in your life this week from this class? Okay, good to know that other people think the same about water. Thank you, David, Gia, and everyone else who has donated. Gonna do another monk week. A break from distractions every morning. Procrastinate distraction. First purpose, then pleasure. First purpose, then pleasure. Peace, I think I didn't see your donation. Sometimes I saw it here. Thank you. Sometimes they don't appear though. Offline mornings and big rocks morning routine. First purpose, then pleasure. FPTP, I hadn't thought about it like that. Being reminded how ambitious I am instead of being distracted by life's downside. That dopamine can be harmful. Thank you, peace. That this technique is achievable Yes. And as I said, there is a summary of everything that I talked about today in the resources page. There is a workbook that you can download for free with 3 different sections about distractions. The dopamine audit, that will help you have full awareness about this in your life. The Monk Week guidelines, and then guidelines for a healthy relationship with tech. Email, chat, phone, everything is there. Islands of pleasure in an ocean of meaning and purpose. Okay, wonderful. So, self-discipline is punishment, self-respect. Yes. So it was a pleasure to be with you here today. 244 people. Now, this closes the awareness pillar for this season. Next week, we are going to start talking about the action pillar. For those of you who have the book and you want to read that chapter first, that is going to be chapter 25. Chapter 25 of Mindful Self-Discipline. So I hope to see you all next week, same day, same time. And until then, stay disciplined and take care. Thank you.